Today we're looking at the guess and check method to solve problems. Here's a typical question that we can use for guess and check. Tom is twice the age of Jane. Steve is 8 years younger than Jane. If Steve is 15, how old is Tom? So the very first thing we need to do is work out who's the youngest here. And when we read that carefully, we find out that Steve is the youngest. So I'm going to put S for Steve. Always start with the youngest or the smallest amount. We know Steve is 15. The question tells us that. The next youngest person is Jane. So we'll put J for Jane. And Jane is 8 years older than Steve. So if Steve is 15, 8 years older than that would be 23. There's a difference of 8 between 15 and 23. Next, we read the question really carefully and we see that the next person we need is Tom. And it says Tom is twice the age of Jane. So twice the age of 23. So 2 10s and 2 10s is 4 10s. 3 and 3 is 6. Now we'll read the question very carefully and see what answer we need here. How old is Tom? Tom is 46. And always show your answer really, really clear. This time we've got to in this example of guess and check, we've got the total. We need to work out each part. John is 3 times the weight of Alex. Billy weighs 6 kilos less than Alex. Altogether, the 3 boys weigh 114 kilos. How much does each person weigh? So again, with these questions, we always look to start with the smallest or the least amount. So reading this really carefully, we see that Billy is the lightest. So we'll start with Billy. And then the next person is Alex. And finally, we have John, who's the heaviest. Now, altogether, their weights need to add up, as it says. All 3 boys together make 114 kilos. So I'm going to keep guessing and checking until I get to 114 kilos. Now, it might take me a few goes. So this isn't something that you can rush. Well, I always like to start with a nice even number just to see how things go. We've got 3 weights here that we need to think of to make 114. One of them's 3 times more than the other. So I'm just going to start with nice round numbers. Let's start off with Billy at 20. Now, Billy weighs 6 kilos less than Alex. So Alex must be 26 then, mustn't he? That's 6 kilos more. And finally, we see that John is 3 times that. So 3 times 26. I'll work that out over here. 3 times 26. And what I'm going to do is split it into 3 times 20. And then 3 times 6. What I'm doing, I'm still multiplying 3 by 26. I've just broken it up into 2 easy chunks. Well, 3 times 20, I'm going to use my place value knowledge for that. And say 2 3s are 6, and put that 0 back on. So 3 times 20 is 60, and 3 times 6, I know my tables, 6, 12, 18. So we've got 60 and then 18 together. That will be John's weight. We've worked out 3 times 26, which makes 78. Now see, I'm being really careful to keep everything in the right place value column, the 1s and the 10s, because now I need to add these things up to see whether I get our target, which is 114. So 8 and 6 makes 14, and we carry the 1. And then we've got 7 in the 10s column, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 124. Now, what's our target? 114. So I'm just a little bit over, aren't I? Again, this is something that you mustn't rush. You must take your time, and you will get the answer correct if you take your time. So to bring it down to 114, I'm going to have to make Billy a little bit younger, aren't I? Less of a number, because Alex is going to be 6 on top of that, and then John is going to be 3 times the weight of Alex. So once again, we'll go starting with the least amount or the smallest, which is Billy. We've got Alex and we've got John. Okay, well, 124, I'm going to need to bring my numbers down just a little bit, aren't I, for Billy, if I want 114. Well, let's try 18 this time then. So let's make Billy 18. Now, Alex is 6 kilos more, it says in the question. Well, Billy weighs 6 kilos less than Alex. That means Alex is 6 kilos more than Billy, doesn't it? So if we put 6 on top of 18, we've got 24. These are slightly smaller numbers, aren't they? Notice again that I'm keeping it in the ones column and the tens column. It's going to make it easier for me to add up. Now we need 3 times 24, and I'm going to use the same trick again, which is the split method. 3 times 20 and 3 times 4. We're still multiplying 3 by 24. I've just broken it up into 2 easier chunks. 2 3s are 6 again, and put the 0 on, making 60. And 3 times 4 is 12. We've got 60 and 12, which is 72. All right, it's time for us to add up. Let's see if we get a bit closer to that 114. That's the target. We've got 8 and 2 here, which is 10, and 4 more, making 14. So 4 in that column. We're going to carry the 1. And then we've got 7, 8, 9, 10, and another 1, making 11. Okay, so we've added up all their weights. And as you can see, we've reached our target, which is 114. Got lucky there a little bit. It may have taken another go, but we just about got to where we needed to be. So just moving this all out all the way, I'll just check and make sure, because you need to do that. Just go over it again. Let's check. Billy is 18, yep, and Alex needs to be 6 years older. So, sorry, 6 kilos more than Billy, and that works. 24 is 6 more. And then John needs to be 3 times Alex's weight. So 3 times 24, we made 72, and that works as well. And then make sure I've added up correctly. 8 and 2 making 10. And that other 4 making 14. Put the 4 in the ones column, carry the 1. We've got 7 tens and 2 tens, which is 9 tens. 1 more 10 is 10 tens. And that 1 that we carried, 11 tens, 114. That's the target that we want. So how much does each person weigh? We've got John. Always show your answer clearly. John equals 72. And what are we weighing in kilos here? The next person is Alex, and he weighs 24 kilos. And finally, we've got Billy, the last person, and he weighs 18 kilos. And we'll circle it just to make sure it's clear that that's the answer that we've come up with. And that's it. In our last example, we've got a total again in this question. As we do always in Guess and Check, we try and work out, we always start with the least or the smallest amount, okay? So we read this question really carefully, and while I'm reading it, I'm thinking, well, which is the least amount, the smallest? In the car park, there are half the number of white cars than there are blue ones. There are double the amount of red cars to blue ones. That should be in, sorry, let's just fix that up. In total, there are 105 cars in the car park. How many are blue? So once again, I'm trying to work out what the smallest amount is, because that's where we're going to start. In the car park, there are half the number of white cars than there are blue ones. So there's less white cars than blue. There are double the amount of red cars to blue ones. So there's more red cars than blue. So it must be the white cars that are the smallest or the least amount, followed by the blue cars. And then as we read on, we see that the red cars, there's double the amount of the red cars. So that's our order, starting with the least or the smallest, which is the white cars. We need to guess and check, and when we add them all up, the total number needs to be 105. So again, I always like to start with a nice, easy number, and then we can decide whether we need to go up or down. So let's start with 10, a nice round number, 10. Notice again that this is the ones column, this is the tens column. I'm not going to get confused, I'm going to line them up neatly. Now what I need to do next is read the question and make sure I'm doing the right thing. In the car park, there are half the number of white cars than there are blue ones. Half the number of white cars than there are blue. Well, if there are 20 blue cars, that would mean there's half the number of white cars, so that works, that's 10. And then we see that there are double the amount of red cars than blue. So what's double 20? That's 40, isn't it? Okay. Time for us to add up and see how close we are to our 105. So 0, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 70. So as you can see, we need to up those numbers if we're going to get our 105. Okay, well, it's the same order again. So we'll start with the white cars, they're the least, followed by the blue cars, and finally the red cars. Okay, well, we need to make our numbers a little bigger. Let's make the white cars 15 this time. We need to come up a little bit with our numbers. And we see the blue ones, there needs to be half the amount of white cars than blue ones. So if there were 30 blue cars, half of that would be 15, so that works. Again, I'm being really careful to keep everything in the right place value column, so that when I have to add them up, it makes it easier. Finally, there are double the amount of red cars, or double 30 is 60. Okay. In the ones column, we've got 5 then, and we've got 6 tens and another 3 tens making 9 tens, and one more making 10 tens. 10 tens are 100, aren't they? So 105. Hey presto, we've got it. So now what we do is we read the question and what is the answer that we need? In total, there are 105 cars in the car park. How many are blue? Okay, so again, we write our answer really clearly. Blue. How many blue cars? We said that there were 30. And circle your answer to make it really clear that that is your answer.